This is Asahi, and she loves teasing Kageyama, but secretly she's just a shy and insecure girl who craves his attention. Will she get what she wants, or will Kageyama fall in love with someone else before she does? While he approached the upcoming classroom door, he thought about his smooth sailing otaku life. Like you'd think what he is most concerned about would be exploding or dying. But rather, getting nothing good in a gacha game is even worse than death itself. And while bursting through the classroom door, Kageyama Ryo spent all his stones and didn't get squat. But lying behind that classroom door was Yuta trying to get down and jiggy with his lady. And what do you know? Kageyama the otaku is getting left behind by all his friends. He hadn't even realized Yuta had gotten a girlfriend, but it had actually been since last month. And that's when it hit him. He had been so deep in his new gacha game that he hadn't noticed Yuta was in love. And this apparently happens all the time. He wants to enjoy his otaku life with his friends, but everyone seems to be moving on. First it was his atrocious pull rates, and next it was his best friend getting a girlfriend. But unfortunately for him, he had other concerns. When suddenly someone snatched his phone out his hand, asking if he was seriously still playing games, when it's the sole reason he isn't popular. He then notices Asahi standing behind him, and that's when her lecture began, because is he really about to waste his life being a creepy otaku? Or maybe it's because he has no other choice but to turn to fictional characters. I mean, it's not like he's popular in this life. It's always siren this and siren that, but he still can't pull his dream girl in game or in real life. Introducing Kohinata Asahi, Kageyama's childhood friend, who thinks he's only into this gacha game because a certain character he wants has large breasts. Flustered, Kageyama grabs back his phone. Not that it isn't a perk, but it's definitely not the only reason. And bro got straight to yapping. Like all this rapid otaku talk just grosses her out. Still, if she really finds it so disgusting, why does she go out of her way to seek out this gross otaku in the first place? And well, because of snacks and manga, of course. Plus, she thinks she's adding some well-needed flair to his dreary otaku room. So he should be at least a little bit more grateful. The Modern Culture and Exchange Club might have that name, but in reality, it's just an otaku's lair. And into that lair walked Yuta from earlier, causing Asahi to jolt nervously, as he apologized for not telling Kageyama about his girlfriend sooner. But then he noticed Asahi sitting with him, mentioning how close the two must be. And while she nervously blushes, thinking that they're not that close, Kageyama on the other hand mentions that they're just childhood friends. But Yuta's persistent. It turns out Asahi hasn't joined a club yet, and he wanted to ask if she'd like to join theirs. But then he realized he might have interrupted something when he walked in earlier, so he decided to give them some space. To Kageyama, it's typical for Yuta to say weird things like that. But even so, there's a limit to being socially awkward, and she's long since surpassed it. You see, in front of Kageyama, she acts all cheeky and confident, but in front of everyone else, her social anxiety explodes, to the point she can't even make eye contact. As ever since they were kids, she never had many friends. In fact, Kageyama was the only one who really paid her any attention. That's why she still sticks around him even now. But with Kageyama graduating in a year, it would be nice if he could make some friends before then. Sure, it's only been a week since she started school, but he wanted to know if she plans on spending her youth being a loner. And if that's the case, the next 3 years are going to be pretty tough. But she doesn't want to hear that from some gross otaku who thinks they're living their life to the fullest. Sure, he might have some friends, but he's never had a girlfriend before. And if his age was a record of how long he's been single, then Buddy needed to return to reality and quick. After all, being a loner, that's a tough one, you know. And she just keeps on going. Like, yo, look at your man's Yuta. He got a girlfriend. How do you feel now? And her words really had bro out here shedding a tear, damn it. She just kept rubbing salt on his wounds, making it worse. But Kageyama thinks she should mind her own business, because as long as he has friends and his favorite character, then he doesn't need a girlfriend. And that's when she picks up on his tough guy act, mentioning that it can't be helped then, asking if maybe she should just become his girlfriend then, but only if he wins at the pocky game. Whoever lets go or breaks their peace first loses. But Kageyama's confused because why this game? And well, she claims that it's only because she felt bad for him, wanting to give him a chance to be around a real woman. But taking his time to think about it, bro has never once thought of her as a woman. She erupts with embarrassment as he apologizes, since he's only interested in his favorite character, thinking to himself that she sure does say the most ridiculous things sometimes. And though she's clearly embarrassed, she hasn't given up hope yet, because if he doesn't see her as a woman, then surely this game should be easy for him. And since she's more experienced, Asahi claims she won't even be conscious of him. But when she noticed he wasn't budging, she decided to hit him with that 1-hit 2-hit combo. He a gross, bum-ass, unpopular-ass, virgin-ass looking otaku. Damn. And she's slowly getting under his skin, annoying him with each passing second. And he decided he wasn't about to let her get any cockier than she is right now. He wanted to teach this little brat a lesson, and without warning, he slams his hand on the table before them and bites right onto the pocky bar. He thinks to himself that this is bad. She's a lot closer than he thought, and wonder, why the hell is she so calm? Is it that she's actually experienced? And bro got right to analyzing her facial features. Such long eyelashes on a small face. Actually, now that he thinks about it, when he's this close, she actually looks pretty cute. But this is light work for her, asking if he's getting nervous already. Damn near had bro's heart skipping a beat. He scolds himself for not being locked in, because if he loses, he'll just be made fun of again. And while biting down and getting even closer, he tries his best to calm himself down, but then noticed someone was getting a bit flustered. He wondered what was up with that look on her face and decided to lock in even further, asking if maybe she was being conscious of him now. Shocked, she quickly swung her head back, snapping the pocky in half and fell straight to the floor. Confused, he asked what she was doing. But turning to face him, she exclaims that there's no way she's getting conscious of him. She simply got overwhelmed by his close-up, that she couldn't help but laugh. Not that she actually likes him or anything. She squeals even louder when she catches that certain look on his face. After all, she did just lose. And while she might try to deny it, who's the one that's blushing right now who broke the pocky and collapsed to the floor? He was waiting for her to say it. And while he enjoyed his victory, she whispers under her breath that she didn't lose. And as he stared at her for a moment, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He bursted out laughing and apologized for being a bit mean, since he knows she's not conscious of him. But he thought to himself, whether it's a girlfriend or a lover, that's something you should become for someone you truly care about. She should save games like this for that kind of person. And with that, he closes the door behind her. But what she really wants is for him to stop looking only at 2D girls, and maybe, just once in a while, look at her instead. The next day while leaving his house, Kageyama can't believe he allowed her to make his heart skip a beat. But then again, he shouldn't worry too much about it, since he only has 1 year left. Just then, Asahi sneaks up behind him, teasing him about his messy bed hair. And since it can't be helped, until she finds some friends of her own, he'll just have to keep her company a little while longer. Slouched back in his chair, Kageyama stares at a sheet of paper listing his future plans with Meitei University, sitting firmly at the top. And maybe he is right. Now might not be the time to be a full-blown otaku, when suddenly, someone called out to him from behind. And that's when he realized she decided to drop by again today. And it seemed she'd only come to tease him yet again. She'd just seen Yuta with his girlfriend and figured Kageyama must have gotten dumped. In reality though, the other club members were just busy with their part-time jobs. But peeking over his shoulder, she noticed he was reading something. So she snatched it right out of his hand to take a look for herself, and freaked out when she noticed he wanted to go to a super elite school in Tokyo. And she didn't hesitate to shut Buddy's dreams down, as there's no way he could just go to a place like that. Besides, a school like Meitei University offer really cool and stylish people, which he's not. She recommends that a plain otaku such as himself go to a local university instead, but Kageyama wants to get into a good school so he can get a good job. And taking a moment to think about it, he had a question she wanted to ask. You see, if you rolled 2 dice, what would be the lowest possible sum you get when looking from the top? Kageyama thinks the answer is clearly 2, but the answer would actually be 1 since they'd be stacked. Asahi pities him for not being able to answer such a simple question, and calls him an idiot, since even elementary school kids would know the answer to that question. And at this rate, bro's chances of getting into Meitei ain't looking all that good, to be honest. But then he noticed something, a piece of paper sticking out of her bag. And when he took a closer look, well, she wasn't doing so great herself. She'd scored only a 33% on her latest test, and that left her in no position to lecture anyone. But now bro's fully convinced there's no way she actually got into their top tier school. Instead, she must have been sneaking through the back door this whole time. But she swears she was just having an off day. And if that was the case, then he wanted to put her to the test himself, asking if she were to roll 2 dice, then what would be the possibility of getting a double? Shortly after teasing her, since she did mention that if she tried, it would be pretty easy. Feeling pumped, she decided that she got this in the bag, and started off by literally staring at the dice, rolling the dice, and started jotting down notes, leaving Kageyama to wonder if she was actually being serious. Was she really trying to brute force her way through the possibility? But after a while, he had had enough. It was middle school math, for crying out loud. But Asahi disagrees, since, well, it's not like you need math to survive anyway. And he might be right. Only people who suck at math would say that. And I would know because I'm one of them. Still, Kageyama told her she should probably go back to elementary school and relearn basic arithmetic. And just to flex on him real quick, he reached for his results from the last test, revealing he had placed second out of 260 students, demanding that she never calls him an idiot again, figuring he had to spell it out bluntly, otherwise she'd never get his message. Still, if she's stumbling this much, he thinks she should have gone to an easier high school, and wonders why she'd even bother coming to theirs in the first place. But her reasoning was actually pretty simple. It's because she wanted to be with him. And bro had to hit her with a huh? As his brain goes into overdrive, wondering what's with this cute behavior all of a sudden. But it's then that he realized that she forced her way into this school just to follow him, even though she clearly sucks at studying. In all that Meitei talk earlier, he wonders if that was the reason why, and asked how badly did she want to be with him. It took her a moment, but when she finally realized what she had just confessed, she nervously flails around, claiming that that's not it, and that he shouldn't get ahead of himself. What she actually meant was how much safer she feels having someone else she knows at school, as it's purely just for convenience. And almost as if bro hadn't heard a single word she said, he sighs knowing that he's the only one she's got, and demanded that she sits down already. After all, she needs to prepare before retaking her test, and offers to help tutor her. Her face flushes bright red, and she couldn't help but slump over as her heart beats wildly, almost as if it were about to explode any second now. All while Kageyama tries to figure out where to even begin. Finally, unable to take it anymore, she bursts out shouting that he's an idiot. And as their lessons go underway, somewhere else on campus, a young woman glances at a chart, noticing that she's taken first place yet again, thinking how utterly boring it all is. A beauty approaches Kageyama and asks if she could have a moment of his time, leading him through the school's halls, where they attracted the curious stares of everyone around them, leaving Kageyama to wonder if he's done something wrong. And well, it didn't take long for him to blurt out that very same question. But it turns out that the exams had been a complete letdown for her, as she genuinely thought Kageyama would beat her this time, and wanted to know how much longer he plans on messing around, asking if maybe he just enjoys losing that much. But the very thought of it pisses him off. Not that he'd actually say it out loud, but he doesn't think it's any of Maezono's business, mentioning that they should definitely lock in when it's closer to their university exams. And with a deadpan stare, she mentioned how boring he had gotten, thinking back to the time he had actually beaten her and how excited it had made her for the very first time. She had lost to someone, yet Kageyama finds that hard to believe. But coming a bit closer, Maezono had asked if he were still into otaku stuff, surprising him as how did she even know about that? But she had already seen right through him. She's the president for the Modern Culture Exchange Club, but they haven't submitted a single report that's needed per month. But while holding his hand, she proposed something. If he loses to her in the next exam, then she'll be shutting down his club. Speechless, he stood frozen in place. But Maezono wasn't finished yet and proposed a bet, all while Asahi peeks in from behind the door, as this strange woman was getting all close to her mans, thinking how mature she had looked, similar to Kageyama's actual type. But continuing with their conversation, Kageyama wanted to know more about this bet. Maezono's smile widened as she leaned in, pushing him down into a nearby chair. Her knee slid between his thighs as she whispered that she'll do whatever he says. All while Asahi's a few seconds from crashing out herself. Like this girl got her boobies all up in his face, and all it took was for the biddies to bounce once, and bro was already captivated. He had to snap out of it, warning her not to just say vague things like that. But in her eyes, it really could be anything. Maybe like buying lunch, doing some dumb face, or maybe even doing something naughty for him. And now bro's heart rate is through the roof. He don't know how much of this he could take. First he's been losing to Maezono, and now he's completely getting wrecked by her as well. But he's not about to just roll over and take it, but instead accepts her request. She wonders if maybe the "I'll do anything you say" was what had gotten him, but bro's doing it all for his pride and to protect his otaku lifestyle. Plus, he's not really interested in anyone who isn't his favorite character. Slightly annoyed, Maezono took a different approach, mentioning that it did kind of feel like he was staring at her chest earlier. So maybe that was actually what had gotten him. But nah, that was just a boy's body doing what a boy's body do. Because even if we aren't interested, our eye still goes towards boobies. But with that confession, she now knows he was thinking something lewd, how he must be the pervy type. But reaching out his hand, he grabs onto her, since if she doesn't want people to look, then maybe she should close it up. And her face immediately turns red, with him turning around to leave and closes the door behind him. She clutches her blazer while blushing and thinks to herself how interesting he seems. And as soon as he makes it outside the room, bro lost all his composure. He had gotten so used to Asahi teasing him that his body had reacted on its own. But speaking of the devil, there she was sitting right next to him, with him immediately asking what the hell was she doing there. But she sat there silently, frustration simmering beneath the surface, and asked him what he was doing with Maezono just now. And even though Kageyama mentions he was just passing by, as it's not like he was doing anything, she shouts that he was. She saw him being all lovey-dovey with another woman, and how she must be his type. and while she clutches her bag, she made a request. She'd like them to make a bet, and whoever loses has to do whatever the winner says. When he tried to reject her offer, she jumps up from where she sat and shouted that he didn't have a choice, that he should ensure that he's available after school, and ran off. It's then after school that they made their way into the arcade, as they'll be doing a best of 3 games. It's then that he notices that all she really wanted to do was play some games with him, and decided to go along for the ride. The very first match was none other than a rhythm game. Asahi, already brimming with confidence, claims that she's actually pretty good at this game, deciding to set the difficulty to the max, leaving Kageyama to wonder if she was actually really good at the game. And right as she got to playing, you could just tell from his expression that she was straight buns. And what do you know? He actually won by a landslide, as he peeks around since she actually made him worried. But Asahi is fighting back tears at this point, with 2 girls in the distance thinking how gross Kageyama must be for making a girl cry, leaving him no other choice but to scoop Asahi up as they move on to the next game. Round 2 was shooting, and Kageyama already plans to just lose this one on purpose, but Asahi's making it hard for him, as she's just shooting all over the place. But surprisingly, she actually managed to win, and even she's totally surprised, because wasn't he supposed to be good at these type of games? Turns to him and taunts him for being a loser, and hell nah, he's not holding back anymore. Round 3 was racing, and Kageyama already knew he won. The moment he sat down, the lights turn green and they're off to the races. Asahi, who's new to these controls, couldn't possibly win against a gamer such as himself. But right as he thought that, Asahi hits his cart from behind, and while driving by, turned to give her signature smug look. And who would have thought she was actually pretty good at the game, as she strategically held her items when she's in front, and saves them to hit him when he goes right past her, having Kageyama thinking that it's only because she's getting lucky. But he's not about to let her act all cocky, and as he grips his steering wheel, he decided to finally use his trump card, taking a shortcut by jumping right over a lake. Asahi was freaking out. He had no idea there was a shortcut on this course. And sure, Kageyama might have felt a little childish for taking it, but he couldn't help it. Victory was in his grasp. And once again, she was about to lose. She begs him to wait, but he taunts her even more. And not being able to help herself, she reached out while screaming that he should let go, and leaped straight into his lap. And while looking up with tears in her eyes, she pleads with him that he can't. It's in that moment that he looks down towards her, and as his hands on top of the steering wheel hesitates, she squeezes even harder. His face flushed deep red, and in that moment of hesitation, the cart veered wildly off course. And so, just like that, Asahi had won. He scolds himself for getting flustered. After all, it was just Asahi. But calling out to him, she mentions how the day kind of felt like they were on a date, and how fun it was, shortly after turning around to smile at him. And as his eyes widened, he shouts that it wasn't a date, but rather he was just keeping her company. It's now that he realized that today had been an utter defeat for him, and decided to just get over with it, asking what exactly he needed to do since he had lost their bet, fully imagining that she'd want him to be her servant. But you see, what she really wants is still a secret, deciding to save it for when it really matters. And while a car drove by, the window had slowly started to roll down, as Maezono thinks Kageyama might not be taking their bet seriously, as the story continues. Within the Modern Culture Exchange Club, a debate breaks out between Yuta, who wants to attend a concert, and someone else pushing for a meetup. Both argue that they'd want Kageyama to tag along, but he only can go with one of them. And as their eyes eventually turn to Kageyama, Expecting him to choose a side, he declines both. Sure, it might be Golden Week, but Kageyama reminds them that they actually have a test coming up. His friends argue that he'll just come second to Maezono anyway, so why stress about it? But that's the exact problem. He has to win this bet, and his mind is already made up too. He's going to study no matter what. So they should just go figure out their Golden Week plans themselves. But they're so desperate to sway him, they even offer to treat him to yakiniku on the way back, as their arguments spiral into a back and forth over whether 3D girls or shaking hands with a real woman is better. And once again they turn to Kageyama for his opinion. And just as he was about to answer, someone else interrupted while they opened his clubroom door, mentioning that he'll be studying, as Maezono walks in declaring that they have an important match together, and looks towards Kageyama for him to affirm her statement. As they quickly stood to their feet, surprised that she showed up all of a sudden, Kageyama curiously asked why she was even there, and her response was simply because she was getting ready to clean out their clubroom. But it seems Kageyama hasn't told his other members yet that Maezono actually has plans to disband their club. And at first they were completely silent because what the hell is she even talking about? And so they directed their frustration towards Kageyama, but he swears it's okay, as they're just doing a little bet. But being curious, Maezono had found something. At first she thought it was just a textbook, but it's all just comic books, and immediately instructed her assistant to dispose of it. But grabbing it out of her hand, Kageyama insists she can't just throw it away, even if he doesn't use them for classes. But that wasn't all, because she also found board games and magazines, both of which aren't even allowed in school. And she gets straight to tossing and disposing of everything that could be a distraction to studying. And at this rate, if Kageyama doesn't do something soon, their whole clubroom's gonna be taken over before he knows it. Asking her why she decided to barge in all of a sudden when he's clearly been studying fine this whole time. But turning to look back at him, she claims that he couldn't possibly be serious. After all, she did just spot him the other day walking out of an arcade, and she absolutely refuses to have a boring match with him. But it seems at this rate, he might not even be a worthy opponent. It's then that he took a moment to think about it, realizing just how much she had looked down on him. Suddenly, a notification buzzed on Kageyama's phone, catching her attention. It was a message from his favorite gacha game, and when she picked it up, she notes how this too was also unnecessary, and recommends that they uninstall it. And though his friends tried to convince her otherwise, she found even more reasons to just delete it. But Yuta had reached his limit. He was so close to losing it that in a panic he shoved Kageyama forward, right into Maezono, demanding that he tells her to stop. The sudden motion caused a chaotic scene, and before they knew it, Kageyama found himself all over her, with his body awkwardly pressed against the desk, all while everyone else stood frozen in place. Her voice broke through the tension as she softly called his name, asking if he was mad at her over some dumb game no less. But reaching out his hands towards her, she flinches, but he taps away on his phone and clicks the uninstall button, and with a calm demeanor mentions that it was deleted. Shocked, she never thought he'd actually go through with it. But because she allowed him to get this serious, then he warns her to prepare herself. And as the bright red blush slowly spread across her face, he leans off of her as his friends asked if his game data would be okay. But he mentions it would be fine since he had already saved everything to the cloud. All while Maezono blushes out of control. And as Kageyama's friends cheer him on, Maezono's assistant helps her off the table. But she's still in disbelief, wondering what's gotten into him, getting so serious all of a sudden, and only 2 weeks left until their test. As Kageyama stood alone in the pouring rain, he realized another bus won't be arriving until 30 minutes, and quietly sulks since he couldn't get home sooner to study. But then, a familiar voice called out from the distance. It was Asahi, teasing him for being all alone and offers to escort him home. And instead of being grateful, Kageyama just looks irritated because she didn't just happen to run into him. She must have really wanted to be around him. And as she ran over, she shouts that she didn't, but only came because he looked pitiful. But before either of them could say much more, a car sped by, splashing a wave of water that soaked them both. And just as they were about to crash out, Maezono stopped and apologized, as her grandfather's driving can sometimes be a bit reckless. But at second glance, she noticed that it was Kageyama along with Asahi. And before they knew it, they were all squished together in the backseat of the family car, with Maezono offering Kageyama a tissue. She quickly apologized for how cramped the back seats were, then rummaged through her purse and pulled out some cash, insisting she'd cover their cleaning bill. And as Kageyama sat there, he began to piece a few things together. She was always being picked up and dropped off from school, and if he remembered correctly, her family was actually pretty well off. Meanwhile, Asahi glanced at her from the corner of her eye. She recognized Maezono immediately. She was the one who had brought Kageyama to the student council room just the other day. And calling out to Asahi next, Maezono offered her a napkin, all while she leaned over trying to get closer to her. And it's then that she couldn't help but notice how soaked she was, apologizing again as she wiped her cheek, hoping that Asahi doesn't get sick because of her. As Maezono continued patting Asahi down with a towel, Asahi couldn't stop thinking about how gentle Maezono was, and how nice she smelled. But breaking the silence, Maezono asked if Kageyama had played any games recently. And when he confirmed that he actually hasn't, it had caught her off guard, as maybe now they'll finally be able to have a good match. But Kageyama warns her not to let her guard down just because she had always been in first place, which has Asahi wondering if the young woman sitting across from her was smart, noticing how she seems so mature. But not only that, but she's also the student council president. She's beautiful, smart, and has great communication skills, all of which she's lacking. But to make it all worse, she also has a great figure. As she sat there in silence, she wondered what kind of relationship someone this incredible could possibly have with Kageyama. And as she clenched her fists in frustration, the tension kept building, and she couldn't help but sneeze out loud. Embarrassed, she asked Kageyama if he had a tissue, but he actually only had a handkerchief. Just then, he glanced at her and noticed her nose running, and mentioned that she wasn't some little kid anymore. And as she jolted from his comment, she couldn't help but blow her nose into his handkerchief as she tells him to shut the hell up. It's then that Maezono notices Asahi was the exact girl who left the arcade with Kageyama the other day. And while Asahi shivers from the cold, Kageyama removed his jacket, figuring she must have been freezing, and offered it to her. But then she asked if he wanted to seem cool or something, and bro didn't hesitate to assume she didn't want it, leaving her to mention in desperation that she actually does, multiple times. It's when he placed his jacket over her that Maezono's eyes widen, as she points out that Kageyama seems pretty good at taking care of other people. But of course he denies it since they're just childhood friends. Actually, she's always had this clumsy side to her, kinda like a child needing a babysitter or something. And as soon as she heard that, they went straight to bickering, as Maezono turns to gaze out the window, looking ahead deep in thought as the car drives through the downpour. Some time passes by, and while they're leaving the vehicle, he apologizes for having her drop him home, but she insists it was fine since it was caused by her grandpa splashing them in the first place. And taking a moment, Asahi wanted to thank her as well. And while staring patiently at her, Kageyama broke the silence by mentioning that he'll see her after their break, and he definitely won't be losing their match. But she suddenly grabbed onto him, pulling him back towards her. And as Asahi curiously turns back, she witnesses Maezono smooching upon her mans, and she couldn't believe it. But in reality, Maezono just wanted to whisper that they should fight fair and square, and shortly after peeped out to look at Asahi with that devilish smile of hers. All while Asahi's mind races with the thoughts of what she just saw. And as Maezono quietly sat back down, allowing that tension to build, Kageyama freaks out as he wonders, why did she have to do that? As Maezono waved goodbye and her car pulled off, he tried to shake it off, muttering that they should just go home. All while Asahi wonders if what she just saw, if that was a kiss, as their story continues. Yo, it's your boy Noodles, and I finally got a new mic, gang. Listen to me, my boy, I sound crispy. But for real, if you really like this recap, then there should be a part 2 coming out soon. But until then, check out how this girl grows bigger when a lonely boy praises her. And I'll see you on the other side.